Today was day 20. So officially, the program should be done for me and I should be testing tomorrow. But Thomas was absent one day, and so we had to play makeup for him because they had to keep us manual transmission guys together. All right. Well, if you've been watching from the very beginning, you'll notice that my tan has been getting progressively weirder because I wear a hat, wide-brimmed hat like this, and so you can see how it kind of shades my face from the lighting up there. Same kind of thing happens with the sun, which is the reason why with my sunglasses here, everything down here is more tan. Also, had this really nice V. It's just, it's god awful. I know my skin soaks up the sun, and I don't burn very easily either. So it's just hilarious to me how I step outside for 3 hours and take my kids to the pool, and the little strap that goes across the instep of my foot is completely white, while everything around my foot is tanner, and I'll stay that way for the entire year. And of course, this is going to remain this way, just as in its ultimate ridiculousness. It's just hilarious how pale I am right there because I'm wearing a shirt. I'm wearing an undershirt and I'm wearing an overshirt over top of it, my work mode clothes. Okay, so how did it go day 20 today? I ended up getting up early. At this point, I'm kind of, okay, in fairness, I got up this morning on my own just after 5 a.m. I was pretty exhausted yesterday, so I went to bed early. And by early, I mean like it was only like 10:45 or so. So I still got, a full night, like 6.5 hours. Woke up on my own around 5:15. I think it was actually the number that was 5:26 on my phone, but it was something like that. And I tried to roll over and go back to sleep. But as soon as I was awake, my mind started thinking pre-trip. I've been infected. And so I was thinking pre-trip. And then I just started going through coupling, and I started going through and just saying it all. And it's a horrible thing. Dreams are now being changed over to the training. But I mean, I guess there's worse things to be thinking about at 5-something a.m. Anyway, I basically got up probably about 5:45. I realized at that point my alarm was going to go off at 6:30, and I was doomed. I might as well just get up and get moving. So I turned on the computer that I'm recording at right now and went to maps.google.com and looked at the DDS where I'm going to be testing. And so I looked at their overhead, later found out today that I talked to the instructors, and they said, oh no, they've changed the layout because they had to. They sold off some of that property. They're building a new DDS, but don't have it ready yet. So this one's a little on the small side. It's getting smaller. But anyway, I looked at a lot of the roads nearby that I could be driving on, and I noticed that there's a white line and there's a curb. I jumped down to the street view and looked at it, and so that's at least good. A lot of the turns are wider, not all of them. So I know which ones they're going to send us down. It's going to probably be the tighter ones. Not all of them, but I'm sure they're going to, at least somewhat. And very near the DDS, there is 2 railroad crossings, both with, there's two rails going across. And then you can go down, turn right, and go up to the railroad tracks, or you can continue straight and it kind of curves to the right, and then it goes over the railroad tracks. So one way or another, I'm sure I'm going to be going over the railroad tracks. Not a big deal. We know what the procedure is for that. We're not driving hazmat or anything like that, so you don't need to stop. You just slow down, roll down the windows, listen, and look. Don't see a train? Keep it moving. If you do see a train, put them brakes on, because you're not going to fight the train. The train will win, and you will have a big amount of money you're going to have to pay out of pocket, because if the train hits you, you're on its tracks, you're on its property, basically, the CSX or the rail line's property, and you will be paying for it. Don't want to do that. Okay, so that'll be the road test when I get there. So I went ahead and just got up and going, checked out the roads and stuff. for a bit, but then I realized that, I don't need to overthink it. I've already done a lot of thinking over the weekend anyway about a lot of the techniques and stuff. And one of the things that I thought of and I wanted to put into effect today, I talked to Ruben last Friday and I said, I really am not confident on the alley dock. And he said, well, we'll work on that on Monday. I said, great. I appreciate that. And so I really wanted to think about it. I want to try to get it down. Everybody has different approaches. And every school online you watch their videos of, they have a different approach. I mean, some they'll tell you all kinds of different things. The thing I kind of came to realize, and you probably, if you're a driver, Class A driver, you probably, or even if you're not, you probably figured out that I'm the kind of person that is probably going to make things worse for myself by overthinking. Okay, so one of the things I did was I learned a whole bunch of different tricks and techniques, tried to find one that worked well for me, and then I went and tried it. When it didn't work like 3 or 4 times, I said, I'm going to change tactics. Not the right way to do it. So what I did this last weekend is I thought about it, and I decided I was going to piece together a way that seems like it would work well for me based on the tricks that I've learned and based on the techniques I've learned. And what I came to realize and think about was that if I'm going to line up, you have your space that's the box is 40 feet long, and then there's in front of that 70 feet to the cones. Okay, so I don't want to go into those cones, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up in the middle, so I'll be about 35 feet over from the box. All right, so when I put it in reverse, I'm going to turn the wheel probably about 9 to 9 o'clock until I see the first foot of the landing gear. At that point, I'm going to straighten back up, and I'm going to let the truck just naturally as I go. I'm going to just let it walk back. This allows me to not do anything except observe the truck, which is an approach that some people have said online too. When the trailer looks like it's pointed pretty close to the front of the box, like maybe 5 feet or so away from the front of the box, maybe even a little bit more than that, I'm going to turn to the left. When I turn to the left, it's going to straighten up. So that way I'm going straight back towards not the 2 cones directly, but I'm going to be, that's not what enough. That's probably better because it's at least a decent box. So I'm going to be aiming for about right here. Like if you would extend the box straight out this direction, I'm going to be aiming to the rear part of my trailer is going to be about 3 feet out from that box. As I start to approach, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop and start looking out my windows to make sure that I'm in a good line. Once the trailer is in that spot, maybe even the tire. I'm aiming right now for the box, or aiming right now for the trailer, as opposed to the rear axle that's about 4 or so feet in. At that point, hopefully I'll be on about a 45-degree angle. One thing I've learned is, let's pretend that this is the trailer, which is nowhere near as long as it should be. If this is the box right here, and this is coming in there, what I'm going to try to do is, if the box is right there, I need to get the trailer to go into the cones. It would probably be spread more like that, not so tight. Okay, so but if the tractor part is facing this direction, whatever this angle is from the tractor to the trailer, if I were to duplicate on the opposite end of the trailer that exact same angle, and if I crank my wheel all the way to the left, let's say it's this angle right here on this side, it means that the trailer is going to go off at the same kind of angle. If it's wider, it's going to get in front of it. The trailer is going to be on this line right here before it gets by the time the tractor gets in front of it. It's been a long day. Sorry, I'm brain dead. My point here is kind of like how if it was bouncing off of the trailer, but at the opposite ends, that would be the angle. So angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. That's basically the same angle. So if I can look at it, get on that 45-degree angle, turn my wheel hard, and start to make that turn, about halfway through the turn, where I have the wheel turned right, about halfway to that through that turn the wheel all the way to the left. And then it should undo what it already did. A 45-degree angle will hopefully pull itself back in there without jackknifing too hard around. It shouldn't really need to jackknife. So anyway, I kind of pieced this together. I went to the yard. I started talking to a couple of the instructors about it. And later in the day, I did ask Ruben, and Ruben said, that's pretty much right. I mean, he says that's pretty right. Whatever the angle of the tractor trailer, the tractor is to the trailer, whatever that is, if you turn hard into the turn, you'll catch up with it by about the time the trailer is on an angle that's basically, more or less the angle that the tractor was at the starting position, but on the opposite end. So it kind of makes sense. I had seen that online, but it didn't really sink in. Okay. So that will be something that helps me with AliDoc. Now, what do we do today? Started off the day. I got there just before 7:30, so I got there over half an hour early. And I saw that there was a very bad storm this weekend, and the entire covered tent that was probably 10 foot by 20 feet, it was completely trashed, and a couple of the instructors were cleaning it up. So I put my gloves on, went out there and helped them take stuff to the dump and move things over to the shed and stuff like that, And when I was done with that, I went over and started looking at the trucks, and Ty, who was in my original class, he came over and said, "Hey, would you work on pre-trip with me? Check my pre-trip." I said, "Sure." And so I started to listen to him, and he started going through the paces, and he was doing pretty well. Last week I was at the point where at the very beginning, I think my first week, I'm just trying to cram it. I was studying so hard, really just trying to cram the information into my head, wanting to get it right. Once I kind of got it right, I was at this point where I was not really looking at the paper very often, except to double check myself. And I was missing things, but I was trying really hard to not miss things. And then by the time we got to week 3, I wasn't using the paper anymore, except when I start second guessing myself, when it's wait a minute, is it a tie rod or is it a tie bar? No, it's a tie rod. Is it a torque bar or is it a torque rod? How about the torsion bar or is it a torsion rod? You start to second guess. Anyway, I don't want to start to mess myself up now because then I'm going to end up getting it wrong. I believe that the two things on the front is rod. So the tie rod, torque rod, and then the thing in the back is the torsion bar. I'm going to have to double check that tomorrow just to make sure that I'm not overthinking it. So anyway, today I worked with Ty a little bit and checked his section B, I think was the main one that he wanted help with. And then Mark came over and said he was going to be checking our pre-trip, A, B, C, and coupling. And if we can get to NCAB, we'll do that. All right. There went the morning. Me, Fritz, and Thomas all took turns doing A, B, C, and coupling. Now, they have this mobile diesel truck maintenance trucks that come by, and those guys, I guess they're paid by the job because they will literally pull up. If we're doing maneuvers, they will pull up and block that truck just in the middle of a maneuver, just block the truck and pop the hood and step right up and ask us to step out. And it's they have an agenda. They have a list of things. These guys are no nonsense. They're very good at their job though. But anyway, so we kept getting disrupted because they were checking on the two Peterbilts, the identical ones, the one that we're testing on Wednesday, and then the one that we use for a lot of maneuvers that gets really dirty. So anyway, we kept having to go back and forth between those. Section A, I got right. Everything except for I didn't point at the air compressor right. I was always under the impression that the air compressor was this one machine, but it ended up not being. It ended up not being this thing under the hood. It ended up being this other thing. And and Mark is the first person that's actually corrected us on that. He's a stickler for the details. So I really like that. I like the fact that he's going to be hard on us and want to make sure we get this right. That's a good approach. I'm not some little Generation Z snowflake that can't, take it when he's tried so hard and just doesn't get things right. Hit me hard. Let me know what I need to get right, and then I'll get better, and I won't do it again next time. It was great. So anyway, I was like, as soon as he pointed it out, he says, "What are you pointing at? That's not the air compressor. That's not the airline right there. What the airline? This is the airline up here. So that's the air compressor." I was like, "Oh, well, that makes sense." Also, I wasn't pointing at the water pump correctly. So I got those two things wrong. I pointed in there and he's like, "What are you pointing at?" And I'm like, I showed it and he just kind of gives me a look. Anyway, no one's corrected me on that. I'm glad Mark did. Okay, so those are the only two things I got wrong on Section A. When I got to Section B, Section B I aced, now that I think about it. I didn't get anything wrong. He had no corrections for me. I got to Section C. He said, he was being distracted at the time because another instructor was talking to him. There was some stuff going on, I guess. And he was listening, but I caught a couple of things three things. As soon as I said, "This completes Section C," he said, "Good job. Good job." I said, "Did I miss anything?" He said, "Nope, you got it." I did miss three things in retrospect. The slack adjuster and the push rod. I mentioned that they were held together with a clevis pin and a cotter key. What I did not mention is that when they're engaged, it's going to be at a right angle. And if it's disengaged, it's going to be have no more than an inch of pull. I didn't do that. When I talked about the mud flaps, I failed to mention that it was adequate distance between the tire and the mud flap and the ground. Didn't mention that. I also, at the very, very end, did not say I will inspect the right side of the trailer the same way as I inspected the left. So those things, I know the last bit, that last thing about the inspecting the right side is like the left. I was distracted at that point because I turned around and I was like, he's not paying any attention. So I was just like, that ends the inspection. He was like, good job. And I was like, yeah. And then moments later, that's when Fritz just kind of looked at me and says, "You forgot to say the right side like the left." I said, "You're right, I did." So I was distracted at that point. But not that that's an excuse or anything like that. But there were a couple of things that I missed, but at the same time, Section A, B, and C, if you miss a couple of things on that, you're still going to pass. Okay, I don't want to miss any of them, though. Okay. When it came to coupling, aced it. Nothing wrong. Not a thing. Nobody, Thomas, Mark, and Fritz, no issues. They were like, good. Okay, you didn't miss anything on that. Then it was probably about 20 minutes before lunch, and he's like, "Well, we'll just, let's go on to lunch early. We don't need to go ahead and do anything." I said, "Can you at least check my in-cab? Because if we're going to be doing in-cab after lunch, they'll save us 20 minutes." And he's like, "All right, fine, I'll check your in-cab." Oh, it was going great until I got out and chocked the tires. And then my procedure fell apart. I came back in. As soon as I came back in that trailer, my brain fizzled. I came in and the proper procedure when you're doing your checks is you come back in. The very first thing you do is rev the engine because you just got through doing the trailer, the parking, and the service brake tests. And so you chock your wheels. The very first thing you're supposed to do when you come back in there is build up that tire, build up the air tank pressure again. So once you do that and the governor cuts off, you turn off the engine. Then you turn it to the on accessory position. Okay. Once it's on, the meters come back up. Once the light's clear, at that point, push in both the parking and the trailer brakes. At that point, you don't touch them again. But when I got back in the trailer, in the tractor, rather, in the truck, after doing this, I went straight and pushed those buttons in. And then I turned off the truck. And then when I turned it back to the on position, the air pressure gauge did not come back up. And I kind of looked at it and I was like, wait a minute. So at that point, I looked over at Mark and I was like, oh, I was supposed to build up the air pressure. And he's looking at me because he knows that I aced it last Friday. He's looking at me like, what's wrong with you? And he, for good reason, because what was wrong with me? I literally lost my brain when I walked back in and stepped foot back in the truck. Another indicator that happened is that I started doing things without putting the seatbelt on. That's a big no-no. You're supposed to get in. The very first thing you do is put the seatbelt back in. I got back in and I looked at it and I said, okay, great. Let's go ahead and turn it off. And then after I turned it back on, I was like, oh, the seatbelt. So anyway, you got to get your in cap 100% right. And I was like looking at this and I was like, I realized it had fallen apart and I was like, I don't even know what I did wrong at that point. My brain just totally fizzled out. And so I turned and looked at Mark and said, we already failed. He said, let's go to lunch. I was like, yeah. All right. So I went to lunch. And at that point, I was very disappointed in myself. I would have loved nothing more than to just ace every single one of them all day. Get them all right. And so I went to my car and I said I had to say to myself as a reminder, no egos. You can't have an ego, otherwise you're going to start to get cocky. You're going to start to forget things. And I said, okay, humble yourself. You're not a god. You know this stuff. You've practiced really hard, but you're not some engineer or some truck god or whatever. You don't know this stuff. So lose the cockiness and lose I guess it wasn't really cockiness. I guess it was just overconfidence. And I know that now, looking back at it. I mean, I wasn't like bragging to anybody over it or anything like that. It's just I felt really confident in myself. And then I started to mess that up. And I was like, yikes, bad. So anyway, went to lunch and I said, I'm going to read the entire NCAP very slowly. And then once I did, I said, I got it. And then I read it again. And then I read the trouble part. And I went through the procedure. And then basically I just ate my snacky type lunch. And then once I finished that and I was done reading it multiple times, I got back into the trailer, into the truck, and I went through it again without turning on the truck or anything like that. It was, lunchtime. So the truck's all rest. But I got in the driver's seat and I started talking and doing the entire thing again. And then when I was supposed to get out and do the chalk, I just said, okay, now I'm getting out. Now I'm getting back in. And I went through the procedure again. No problems. I did it again, just from the get back in part where I messed up. And then I did it again. And then I did it again. And by then it was 1:00. We were back in. So I said, okay, I turned on the truck and I was told, we were told at the beginning part of the day we were probably going to go out on the road, but they decided they were going to take the other group of third week people, the people that started. There's the manual transmission people that started the week after me. They went out on the road instead. So we worked on nollie docking. Well, I had my game plan on. I was going to line up, turn the wheel to about 9:00. And then once I see that landing gear, straighten back up and start to allow the trailer to walk out toward the cones and then catch it, straighten up to it. And then when I get close to my line, turn it in, turn it back the other way, and hopefully it'll walk right in, straighten back up. I'll say this. The first time I got there, and I think I did 3 pull-ups. Didn't hit any cones, though. The second time, I was pretty off my mark. And so I ended up hitting a cone and doing 2 pull-ups, I think. No, 3 pull-ups. The third time I went, I hit a cone again. He stopped me before I hit a second cone. And there were like 2 pull-ups, I think. So far, I would have passed every one of those. The fourth time I went, I only had 2 pull-ups. The fifth time I went, I only had 2 pull-ups. It feels better. I'm not going to say I'm confident in it yet. It feels much better because I get in there. I'm not like cussing. I'm not frustrated. I'm not saying, oh, great, let's see what happens this time or any of that kind of stuff. I'm getting in there. I'm like, okay, well, here we go. Turning, landing gear, walk the trailer, just kind of casually talking my way through it. And then once I kind of get there, if it doesn't seem like it's going exactly right, I say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull forward. Go ahead and do that. So I think I got to do it 5 times this afternoon in that last 3 hours. I would say I feel confidence-wise, I'm feeling better about the alley dock. Not great by any means. It's one of the things I was doing today is because they had as soon as we started, they came out there and Ruben pulled us all together and says, all right, guys, we've gotten a little lax on our cell phone policy. You cannot be looking at your cell phones. We have some students that are starting to fail these tests and you need to concentrate on that. When you're here to learn, you put down the phone and learn, pay attention, listen to what the instructors are saying. And every bit of it makes sense. You should be doing that. If you're paying or you're on a free ride to learn a skill, you need to pay attention. It is not unreasonable at all. It's exactly what we need to be doing. That's why my phone is always in airplane mode when I'm on the yard, and it has been all the entire time. It's also been in the in airplane mode when I've been in the training in the classroom. Okay. He also talked about like if you smoke, don't smoke near people, and don't arrive late, things like that. Common courtesy, things that he really shouldn't have to say, but for some reason he had to say it. So we're all on the same page now. All is good. And so yeah, we that was the meeting at the very beginning. So at that point I was over there talking to Mark, and he is so country. He's just such a funny guy. He's a good guy. And like, when he gets in the trailer, he's a short dude. And he gets in the trailer and he's on the right-hand side, the passenger seat, and he lowers it all the way to the ground. And I'm like, I just, he has a great sense of humor. So I look at him, I'm like, Mark, you like driving like one of those little old ladies, can't see over the steering wheel. He's like, I can't sit up as high in that chair like you do. And I said, that's all right, Mark. You can look at the sky if you like to drive down the road looking at it. It's like, who needs to see the road and the cars and stuff? That's fine. Just look at the sky. Anyway, he then raises the seat all the way up, and so that it's really high, and I'm looking up at him. I'm like, you got your high chair going now. And like I said, he's got a good sense of humor. Really good guy. Very, very smart. All right. So anyway, I talked to him a little bit and just listened to him talking about stuff and not necessarily truck related. It was just funny. Some of the things, he'll say truck stuff that I just so far over my head. I don't know what he's talking about. But then he starts talking about other things too, and I don't know what he's talking about too. He's deep country. He is so country. And I can speak Southern. I'm a Southerner, so I understand how to understand Southern for the most part, but he is like deep in the woods, old school Southern. It's like something I've never heard before. It almost sounds like someone's trying to go over the top for a movie or a TV show. It's crazy. Anyway, so that was fun. Talked to him a couple of different times, and then I decided in the last hour I wanted I had talked to him about the procedure I'm going to be doing, and then I wanted to talk to Ruben. I haven't had a chance to really work with Ruben at all. He has not worked with our group at all, and so I wanted to pick his brain a little bit. So I went in there, and he's very nice. He listened to me. He told me this is what is going to be good for success. This is the way it's going to be. He also told me that the DDS will just bring up your name according to whatever order it comes up in. If I get there first, it doesn't mean I'm going first. It means that, whoever is in the computer first is going to go. So that's that. Feeling better about the alley dock. Doesn't make me nervous anymore. I don't think I'm quite at the point where what some people have been saying is that the more you drive, the trailer gets, the whole vehicle, the tractor trailer gets smaller. I don't think I'm there yet, but I will say this: it's a lot more comfortable in there than it used to be. Like even from the very beginning, I'd get behind the wheel and it didn't feel. It was kind of like, part of me was like, who in the world let me into this thing? I mean, don't they know that I don't know anything? But now I get behind the wheel and I feel good about it. Now, granted, tomorrow we're going to go on the road and it's going to probably flush that out of my mind and destroy all my confidence before I get out there. No, I know for real. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I'm going to be terrible. No, I joke. And yes, I understand that humor is still telling your brain, the negative words, because sarcasm, your brain doesn't understand sarcasm. I understand. Thing is, though, I have a sense of humor. I understand when I make comic words, I don't mean them. But at the same time, I understand the way it is. I understand that I can be playful about it, still be humble, still maintain the humbleness. Okay. All right. So, finished today. Said we're going to come back there and work on alley dock again tomorrow, which is good. I want to feel good about it. And then after that, I don't know. We'll probably do in-cab tomorrow because we didn't do it today. And then if I were to guess, we'll probably go out on the road, probably in the morning, and then do alley dock in the afternoon. That's just what my suspicion is, because we have 4 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. They could take us on the road. We could just do the in-cab and then do alley dock and then go on the road in the afternoon. I don't know. It's going to depend. I asked Ruben, how is it driving around Gainesville? He said the roads are a little bit tighter and there's a little bit more traffic. So it'll be good. It'll be okay. All right. So there's day 20. Tomorrow is bonus day, which is makeup day for Thomas. We're going to play makeup and we're going to be good. So be good.